White facial hair has never been okay, and history proves it. White people love to act like they set the standard for grooming, yet history suggests they've spent centuries growing some of the most tragic, unsettling, downright villainous facial hairstyles imaginable. They pioneered the handlebar mustache because apparently looking like a cartoon villain was the goal. They spent centuries growing beards that looked more like nests than facial hair. They invented the soul patch, proving that white barbers are actively conspiring against them. They turned patchy beards into a personality trait. Even today, their facial hair choices range from Civil War reenactor to I just discovered Reddit. At some point, we have to ask, if white people were the standard for masculinity, why has history spent centuries proving their beards belong in the Hall of Shame? Medieval and Renaissance white facial hair was an absolute catastrophe. Medieval European men grew beards that looked like unkempt pile of straw. Renaissance aristocrats thought thin, tiny mustaches made them look sophisticated. In reality, they looked like they lost a bet. They powdered their beards with actual toxic chemicals, then acted confused when their faces broke out in sores. Some even dyed their beards in bright colors because nothing says power like looking like a court jester. Meanwhile, other cultures were out here thriving. Middle Eastern and South Asian cultures perfected the arts of regal, well-groomed beards. Indigenous and African societies had rich traditions of facial hair that actually looked intentional. Asian men maintained clean, elegant styles, while European men were out looking like deranged wizards. White people weren't grooming their beards. They were just seeing how bad it could get. The 19th century was the peak of white beard crimes. They introduced mutton chops, possibly the most unholy facial hair trend of all time. They made the chin strap beard possible, a style so bad it should have been illegal. They grew beards so long and chaotic they could have hid a small child inside them. Imagine having a 2-foot long beard and a 1-foot tall wig at the same time. Presidents, generals, and industrialists all walked around looking like their faces had been overtaken by aggressive shrubbery. Meanwhile, other cultures were keeping it refined. The Ottomans had well-trimmed, majestic beards that symbolized wisdom. Many African warriors styled their facial hair with precision, not chaos. Nobody else was out here sculpting their beards to look like failed topiary projects. White people weren't showcasing masculinity. They were proving they'd never met a good barber. The early 20th century gave us even worse white facial hair chaos. They introduced the pencil-thin mustache, which made every man look like a shady door-to-door salesman. The Great Depression made clean-shaven faces the norm, but somehow they even managed to mess that up. Even their best attempts at growing beards came out looking like abandoned bird nests. Meanwhile, non-white cultures were still keeping it together. Black barbershops perfected the goatee and mustache game, while white men were still drawing lines on their faces. Latino and Arab communities maintained crisp, international beard styles. White people weren't perfecting facial hair. They were just ruining it for everyone else. The late 20th century was the final nail in the coffin. The 70s gave us the porn stash, a look that guaranteed immediate regret. The 80s introduced the thin goatee, which made every white man look like a rejected villain from a bad action movie. The 90s gave us the soul patch, a look that screams, I own at least one fedora. Somehow, they kept recycling these styles like they were ever okay to begin with. Meanwhile, the rest of the world was still winning. Black men's beards and mustaches remained iconic, timeless, and clean-cut. South Asian, Middle Eastern, and Latino communities kept rocking well-maintained, respectable facial hair. White people weren't evolving their look. They were just collecting bad decisions. Even today, white facial hair is still a tragedy. The hipster beard looks like it was grown in a survival bunker. The neck beard refuses to die, proving that white men will defend bad grooming choices to the grave. They overuse beard oil and still manage to look like they just crawled out of a dumpster. They keep reviving mustache trends that should have stayed in the past. Meanwhile, other cultures still have it figured out. Black men's beards remain the gold standard for clean, structured grooming. Middle Eastern and South Asian barbers still produce the sharpest lineups. Nobody else is out here struggling this hard to make facial hair work. White people weren't redefining masculinity. They were just proving that some faces shouldn't have beards. If white people were truly the standard for masculinity, why has history spent centuries proving their facial hair is a complete disaster? Cope.